Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're doing well. Today, we're going to discuss the setup that we're witnessing play out here. We're being set up for a major crisis in one form or another, and this likely will have a big impact on gold and silver as safe havens, but there's several potential crises that I want to delve into here, which the risk of which seems to be elevating significantly. So starting off with this warning that we have just received from FBI Director Christopher Wray, and this is one that is really unbelievably serious if you ask me. He's warning that the U.S. could face a coordinated terror attack, and he's likening this risk to that faced by the Russians in regard to their concert hall terror attack on March 22nd that resulted in the deaths of 144 people. Now, Christopher Wray here, he's saying that an attack on U.S. soil may not be different from what you saw against the concert hall in Russia a few weeks ago from ISIS-K, and he's warning that lone actors or radicalized groups could be influenced to carry out a terror attack in a public place. He also says that the threat environment in the U.S. is currently at an all-time high. So he's saying it's higher than any time in the past. That's an incredible statement, and yet that is what we are hearing from the head of federal law enforcement here, this guy Christopher Wray, telling us that there's a major attack potentially about to unfold. He says, as I look back over my career in law enforcement, I'm hard-pressed to come up with a time that I've seen so many different threats all elevated at the same time, whether it's threats from China, Russia, Iran, the terror threats, both foreign and domestic threats. So the laundry list there that he's presenting, where the fingers will be pointed, in the wake of an attack. And again, I mentioned this is one that we should take seriously. The reason I think that is so important is, look at this. This is from March 8th, 2024, where U.S. intelligence was warning Russia of an attack by extremists. And then what happened, we saw that attack play out on March 22nd. So these warnings should definitely be taken seriously. This is another one to give you an idea of the type of warnings we're receiving from Christopher Wray. And, I'm going to give you my take on this stuff, but I just kind of want to outline for you here what he has been warning about in recent days. This was just yesterday at this Vanderbilt Summit on Modern Conflict. This guy highlighted a severe and ongoing cyber threat that the Chinese government poses to U.S. national and economic security. Now, I know a lot of people, when they see this video, when they watch this live stream, and I do want to thank all of you for tuning in, by the way, but they're going to say, you're just parroting Western mainstream media. This is all just propaganda, pointing fingers at our geopolitical enemies. And look, to that I would say I remain agnostic about, where the threats really are from. I'm just pointing out that when you hear this kind of a warning from somebody like the FBI director, you should acknowledge that, whether you think this is just conditioning the population for, some kind of inside job thing, if you're in that camp, I know a lot of people are. Then also there is, the potential that there really is an external threat. And I think that, you can question the mainstream narrative, certainly, but to believe that these foreign actors, China, Russia, Iran, etc., that there are just completely benevolent actors on the stage is also kind of naive. And, all these state actors, whether it be the FBI, your own political elites, your own leaders, or those opposed to us in the geopolitical chessboard, rarely are these state actors, these state individuals acting out of any kind of benevolence, certainly not acting in your best interest. It's important to keep that in mind. So according to him here, the FBI has observed an increase of cyber incidents that can be traced back to Chinese state-sponsored actors targeting sectors vital to U.S. national security. And now this is the real kicker here, such as energy, finance, I want to draw your attention to that, and defense. Now, think about what a cyber attack on the U.S. financial system might look like. And I'm not trying to get all, tinfoil hat on you here, by the way, but, you look at the U.S. national debt, $34.681 trillion. We're on the verge of a major economic crisis that has been brought in by the policies of, the central banks, the political elites, the politicians who insist on racking up this huge amount of debt. Now we're facing elevated levels of inflation, an insolvent banking system, the Fed trying to get inflation under control by hiking rates, but the whole system is starting to fall apart because we're hopelessly addicted to easy money. And, a crisis is inevitable. You wonder, could this potentially be a cover for these things? Okay, some folks in the chat, they're saying, will silver drop more? Well, let's talk about the price of the metals here. So you have got gold. This is the 3-month chart, 2337. It's come down a little bit from its peak. Largely the same story in silver. We've had kind of what I would consider just a healthy correction here. Now, we got to consider, what is it that has led to this correction? Certainly part of it probably just normal profit taking. I think some people also out there are going to say it's manipulation. Okay, maybe. These are just derivatives of the metals themselves, so there are paper markets. Manipulation is possible, but also it is the unwinding of some of the geopolitical premium that was being put into these markets in the lead up to the exchange between Iran and Israel. Now, that turned out, at least thus far, to not be the opening salvos of a major regional war. So, some of that geopolitical risk premium has to get priced out of the metals, and that is likely what we are witnessing. But the base case for the metals still is ultimately very bullish. So if silver drops more, I'll probably just buy more. I actually bought some today. I bought some silver and some platinum today. I'll show you what I got in just a moment. But this is important to note also that the geopolitical risk premium is out. So imagine if we do get a major cyber attack, a major terror attack. What do you think is going to happen to the metals? Now, look, I'm not gleefully, hoping for that possibility. I hope nothing of the sort occurs. But, the fact is that it looks like something like that might be around the corner. Certainly there's ample warnings of it. It seems like we're being set up for something like that. And as a result, you got to look at where you can position yourself to insulate yourself from the worst of the shocks. And I think the metals is where you want to go. Also, and there's a real risk that this geopolitical premium gets baked right in. If we don't see a domestic attack or a crisis, it's very likely we could continue to see the situation devolve in the Middle East. This is a story from 3 days ago. U.S. military base in Syria under attack has 5 missiles launched from Iraq. Now, why is this so important? Well, this is the first attack against U.S. forces since Iranian-backed groups stopped attacking U.S. troops in February. So if you recall, in February, there was an attack on a U.S. base on the Jordan-Syria border. Some U.S. military personnel were killed as a result of that. And the Iranian-backed militias in the region called off the attacks. Well, they were looking not to get, bombed off the face of the earth, I guess, which could have been the potential reprisal there if they had continued to attack following that fatal attack on U.S. military personnel. Well, now they're back to it, right? So we're in the same situation we found ourselves earlier in the year. These attacks are going to continue, and it's only a matter of time until we see a worse attack on U.S. military personnel in the region. Again, hopefully that doesn't happen, but that does appear to be the trend. So, look, if any of these things happen, if we see a war break out in the Middle East, if we see a domestic crisis, if we see, think about this. If you get a cyber attack on the U.S. financial system, think of all the digits, all the wealth that many of you probably have. You got bank accounts, you got stock portfolios, you got 401ks. That stuff's all digital. You got to think about that. So, probably a good time to get your hands on some assets outside of the digital financial system. The time-honored ones, of course, are gold and silver. Not financial advice, but today, considering the fact that silver and gold and platinum have all pulled back a bit here, I picked up another roll of these 90% U.S. silver coins. Now, look, it's almost $21 per face value. 6 months ago, I could have bought these for $18 face value. Well, I wish I had bought more back then, but I think that we'll be looking back on this date, 6 months down the road, and we're going to say the same thing about these prices. I also picked up one of these platinum Maple Leaf coins that are on sale right now. Get an ounce of platinum for under $1,000, folks. Pretty great deal if you ask me. Platinum, a nice compact store wealth similar to gold, except a lot more rare and very cheap relative to gold right now. But getting back to the fact that we're facing all of these tremendous risks, there was this warning that was put out back in March 20th, and I talked about this story about how the U.S. intelligence is warning that hackers could be carrying out attacks on water systems. Alarming, right? And the gist of this is that these systems are very lightly protected. Oftentimes, they don't even apply the security updates for the software that controls these things. Sometimes it's very outdated. There are exploits in these critical systems that control water, and so they're a frequent target for attack. They're saying that these attacks have come from Chinese and Iranian groups. Now, China and Iran, they deny carrying out these cyber attacks, but of course, that is what you would expect, right? They might be doing these covertly, deny it, whatever. I'm sure we're probing their systems as well. This is not like a one-sided thing, but there was an intrusion here that they mentioned in this article in a booster facility in Aliquapa. I'm probably saying that wrong. Sorry, folks. Sometimes it's hard to pronounce things when you are only reading them and you've never heard them said. But this is a city in Pennsylvania, and these attacks on this pump, they changed the screen to just display "you have been hacked." So they didn't actually do anything. They just made a point of letting people know you have been hacked. So how many of these systems have been compromised? Well, here's an updated story. This is from April 17th about how there is a Russian-based hacking group which apparently caused a water facility in North Texas to overflow in January. So again, fairly, benevolent, I guess. This is a problem. This is malware. This is, causing systems to malfunction, to overflow. But I'm sure that these things could be much worse. But an outside entity hacked into the city's water tank software. It allows operators to interact with and control the tank. The tank overflowed for 30 to 45 minutes. Again, not a huge problem, but it gives you an idea of, the degree to which these systems may be compromised. And you can see if conflict breaks out, or perhaps these bad actors decide to launch a coordinated attack. And again, I'm sure there are those of you who are saying, this isn't the Russians, this isn't the Chinese, this isn't the Iranians. Maybe it's an inside job of some sort. I don't really have any evidence one way or the other. I'm just reporting on, the mainstream, what is allowed to get out through the gatekeepers here. But the point is, it doesn't really matter who's doing it. If your water shuts off, do you really care if it's Iran or China or Russia or some other bad actor, maybe somebody domestically? It doesn't matter. The water's not running, right? So the point is, you got to get prepared for this stuff. And again, if you log into your bank account and your balance is gone, or your trading account and your balance is gone or unavailable, or the bank or the institution has been DDoSed, or they've had their hard drives compromised or wiped. Again, do you really care who's behind it? That's not the important part. The important part is the fallout of the attack. And so, I see some folks in the chat, they're talking about how these places probably have their passwords set to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's honestly not far from it. I've read that sometimes these critical infrastructures, they'll have like default passwords on things. And they're not that secure. Now, is that intentional, right? Or are they being left open? Is it just negligence that causes this? Is it the fact that people aren't, trained on cybersecurity when they're water plant engineers? I don't know. And again, I don't know who's conducting any of these attacks, but the point is that we're getting warnings, we're getting foreshadowings, whether you consider those to be legitimate warnings or predictive programming or whatever. The fact is that we're headed for major geopolitical conflict. We're headed for a tremendous debt crisis here. The bottom line, if nothing else happens, this is an inevitable crisis in the works. But also, it does provide some incentive, perhaps, to allow an attack to take place or to foment an attack. It's certainly good cover for if you need to reset the system. And this is just speculation on my part. Not saying this is a high probability event, but certainly it does appear that the system is fragile and not resilient to attack, and that comes in many levels, right? That comes in the fact that our critical infrastructure is being left wide open to attack. We're fragile in the sense that we have an economy that is levered up to the hilt, and the smallest disruption could create a cascading series of defaults or financial institution failures. Also, we've allowed the system or the geopolitical situation, whether we've allowed it to occur or it has just occurred by nature, things are at an all-time high of instability, and the potential for attacks is very high. And you've got the FBI warning that major attacks are around the corner, the highest threat level in history, according to the director of the FBI. So look, should an event like this take place, gold and silver and platinum, all these precious metals, they're not going to remain in stock for very long, right? It's like a very limited number of lifeboats for a ship with a huge population. I mean, you consider all of the wealth out there, all the digital wealth, all the derivatives. When people want a real safe haven, there's not going to be enough seats, right? And so I suspect that the situation could become very dire for those looking to get into precious metals. You could see physical premiums explode. Kind of got a preview of this last year when the banks started to fail, but that crisis, I think, will be peanuts compared to what is coming. And I don't know, for me, junk silver is probably going to be the first canary in the coal mine when you see this stuff run out. You know, everything else is going to be in short supply very soon as well. That's why I'm still stacking, making other preparedness moves, you know, trying to get myself independent for water, food, all those things, because you're headed for a time here where we may not be able to count on the traditional systems of support. And everybody's so accustomed to just pressing a button on your phone. Things come to your house. You know, we're all on Amazon, just buying things, getting them shipped directly here. We expect to be able to manage our money with the touch of a button, send payments with the touch of a button. And the problem is that because we've gotten so accustomed to all this convenience, that we are left open to a serious crisis, and we're not very resilient. So let me know what you think in the comments down below about this one, folks. What are you doing to get ready? What do you think the odds are of a major event playing out? I think that they appear to be rising, and we should all be doing our best to get prepared. But again, smash that like button, share the video with your friends, check out the sponsors like SD Bullion. There's a link down in the description. And thanks for watching, everybody. Leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. Stay safe and happy stacking, everybody. Smart Silver Stacker out.